Hello, Mrs. Ross.
Well, hi.
How you doing?
I'm doing all right.
Fancy meeting you here in the world.
Yep.
So, hi everyone. Chris.
Stephanie.
And welcome to the Unpacking podcast, where we'll regale you with unpacking our luggage. You know, kind of like the unboxing videos.
I do.
We should do one of those sometime. Just like unpack all of our
Sundries.
all of our sundries and unmentionables and our mentionables.
All right.
Maybe not the unmentionables.
Probably not.
Because they're unmentionable.
So, unpacking.
Yeah.
So, tell me more.
Well, let me tell you. So, part of the reason for unpacking is to kind of share kind of behind the scenes, the things that make our travel work for us, tips and tricks, and frankly...
People ask us all the time, how do you do it? How do you manage? So this is to unpack the secret sauce of how we make it work.
See, Stephanie knows I use a lot of words sometimes for things that she can just like, let me solve this.
Let me just jump in.
So for those of you who haven't seen our videos, or it's been a while, why don't you introduce yourself and then I'll introduce myself.
I'm Stephanie Ross, and this is my husband.
Christopher.
And we are better together.
Yes, very much. And we travel. We travel a lot. We both work full-time jobs. So that is something that I think provides a little bit of uniqueness to our perspective on both the places we go, the amount of time we spend there, the costs associated with it, and we try to share that a little bit in our videos, a little bit on our blog, but also with these videos. Mm-hmm. So you want to kind of share a little bit about your background?
Sure. So I am a mom. I have
a great mom.
I have 8 children in total. We together have 8 altogether, and they range in age from 28 to 14. So we manage family obligations along with full-time jobs and traveling the world. So our goal is to see and experience as much of the world as we can. And sometimes it almost seems like we're just throwing a dart at the map to see where to go next. I'm also a financial advisor. That's what I do for my full-time work. And I think that that does give us some benefits, some perks just from the aspect of having that ability to plan for and execute the financial plans necessary.
Yeah, because we travel because we enjoy it, but it's also something that we look forward to in what we hope will be an early retirement. And so some of our travels are going to places that we are considering for, a place that we'll have as a not a second home, but as a
a go-to.
A go-to.
Yeah.
A staging point from where we'll travel, whether we're in Europe or in Central South America. But we've also kind of just started to travel just really random places sometimes. Here's how the conversation will go. I'll look at a bank of points and I'll grouse about, I can't seem to find any place to go with these Delta points. And then Morocco will show up and I'll say, hey, want to go to Morocco? And I'll hear,
yep, let's do it.
And then we'll book it. And then it's like, okay, now we got to find out all about Morocco.
What do we need to know before we travel?
Before we go.
Yes. But a good starting point is with the budget, whether it be with dollars or with points or some combination thereof.
Yeah.
And figuring out where can we go within our budget and within the time frame.
That's true. And in a future podcast, we'll talk about the FIRE movement. We're not a part of that, but there are some things that we take from that in terms of just looking at that long-term goal, but also particularly because of Stephanie's expertise, finding out how we can still enjoy life now and like I put it, not have to live like a pauper now to retire early, only to live like a pauper again. So we really do try to find a balance, and part of that is through our our use of our credit cards and other benefits to really maximize the resources we have to travel.
For sure.
So for myself, I'm in technology. I work for a technology company and manage an account for them, and that too is something that, like Stephanie's job, does have its challenges. Has a little more flexibility in terms of where I can work from. But as we'll talk about in a future podcast, where we'll really focus on how we manage working full-time jobs and traveling. It's something that we do kind of keep in mind in terms of making sure we're at places where either it's in the States or some place where we have great internet connection, because it's very important to ensure that your customers and your colleagues aren't disenfranchised by you not being local to the wherever area where everybody else is at. So
Yep, for sure. That does give us a leg up in this travel venture that we have.
So talking about travel, let's talk about where we've been this year.
Oh boy.
So
we started off in Merida, Mexico.
Start off in Merida. Yeah, that was an enjoyable trip because we actually stayed up in Progreso this time, which is just northwest
North.
of Merida.
Yep.
But we had an opportunity to go back there and this time take a couple of friends with us. So Brian and Delise, say hi to you.
Hey, what a fun trip that was.
It was, and it was really one of the first times we've actually traveled with another couple. And I think similar to when you and I first went on a trip where I was going to go to Puerto Rico, and we were dating, and she's like, "Ooh, I want to go," and I was like, "Well, I've got my own vibe. I don't know if I'm going to do anything. I may just hang out." And you're like, "I am so down with that. I love you so much. I'll go anywhere."
This is Chris's version that he does love to tell. I could give you the real version, but we'll go with this for
we'll
now.
go with that version because it's a beautiful version. But my point is that we still had that anxiousness of traveling with another couple because you don't know what to expect. You don't know if they're going to be comfortable with our style of travel or if we're going to be comfortable in modifying our style of travel. With a big portion of that being a lot of walking.
Yeah, we do a lot of walking.
Yeah, and we had a great time. And so, Brian and Delise, if you're watching, we'd love to go on another trip with you sooner rather than later.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. That was a great one. And then after that, we went to Antigua, Guatemala.
Yes, which that was one that was literally pulled out of the hat. It was trying to find some place that was in warmer than Chicago. So our main home was here in the Chicago area. So we were looking for someplace warmer in February. And we had points to use with United. And so we looked on the map and said, hey, we can go here and fly basically for free. And so we flew into Guatemala and then spent a weekend in Antigua.
That was a great trip.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that, I'm sure, more again.
In fact, by the time this podcast comes up, either the day before or day after, we should have the podcast up that talks about our volcano hike.
Oh gosh!
Which I'm finally
able to use your.
I finally have my toenails back.
Oh, okay.
So,
I was gonna say I'm able to use both legs.
Yes.
Anyway, so then after Antigua, we took a trip to Nevis in the West Indies.
Yes, and that trip was, so Stephanie's humble, so she's a phenomenal financial advisor, and
thank you.
In that role, there are times where she is awarded trips, and so this is a trip that she was able to select from several places to go, and chose. Is it Nevis or Nevis? Nevis, St. Kitts.
Mm-hmm.
And
in the West
fantastic.
Indies.
Stayed at the Four Seasons.
Yeah, that was a fabulous trip. That was something that I was able to earn just from doing my job. So that's a nice perk for sure.
And one of the things that came out of the trip to Antigua, because we took a day and a half and traveled up and stayed overnight on a volcano. And what I said afterwards was that the highest height I'm going to travel for the rest of the year will be up into a king-size bed. And that's exactly what we did. So it was a very different experience, staying in a really nice Airbnb in Antigua and an Airbnb in Merida, Mexico, to then be staying at the Four Seasons.
For sure.
So.
For sure. But, even more luxurious than that was our next trip for our anniversary, where Chris really pulled out all the stops and took me to the Maldives in an overwater bungalow.
Yes, so we'll keep saying this, so that'll be in a future How We Did It podcast, where we'll actually walk you through how we went about being able to fly Qatar Airways in Q suites. So we had the bed that we put together, had a wonderful stay at Hideaway Bay Beach Resort, and then we flew Etihad back in business class again. And you'll be shocked to find out how little we had to spend out of pocket for a great experience there.
Yeah, that was tremendous.
Yes, it was.
So the Maldives, and then we went to Nashville next, right?
Yes, and you know why? Because we went to the Maldives, and then there was like 3 months between trips, and we were freaking out. So we've gotten to the point where it's like if we're home for more than like 30, 45 days without going somewhere, we have to go someplace. And so
get a little stir crazy, don't we?
Yeah, we had bought what we thought would be our retirement home down in outside of Nashville. And so we went down there because we actually decided to put it back on the market because we're really going to travel more than actually get settled anywhere in the U.S. And so we spent some time in Nashville before going down to the home for a couple of days. And that was very nice.
And I think that, to your point, it is okay to modify your retirement plan as it evolves.
That's a good point.
And that's one of the things that we did as we made that decision, as we are looking at that phase of retirement. And so I applaud both of us for being willing to reevaluate our plan and modify it as needed.
Yep.
So that was the trip to Nashville, was to go ahead and make those decisions. And then the next trip was our cruise.
The cruise. My first cruise.
Chris, this was his first cruise.
I'm on a boat.
And how fun was it for me to, again, be able to utilize work and to bless you with your first cruise? That was a lot of fun.
It was very nice. And I enjoy it because I get a chance to see all of her colleagues in their profession, and they're always raving about her, and I can just be kind of like the husband on the side saying, hi, I'm here just for the food and drinks. So that was kind of nice.
Yeah, so the Mediterranean cruise, where we got to go to Italy, and we got to go to France, and we got to go to Spain, and then to stay in Barcelona for a couple of extra days was a real treat too.
It was. So, and we'll walk everybody through that whole experience, just kind of the things that we learned from being on a cruise, just to make it really comfortable for us, and then staying in Barcelona really kind of got back to our style of traveling too, because the cruise was a shocker. There's a lot of itineraries that you could choose from, and we chose a lot of itineraries. And so, every day you're getting up and you're seeing beautiful sights, but you're going through so quickly, and we're much more slow travelers.
We are.
So
yeah, our style of travel is more of a relaxed, kind of easygoing. We do hike, and we do a lot of steps and a lot of climbing for some reason, but we are more likely to sit back, enjoy the scenery, enjoy the vibe, enjoy the culture, and just take our time with things. Whereas that cruise, what about the day we had to be there? Was it at 6:15 in the morning? We started the morning.
Yeah.
So 6:15, we got back 12 hours later, maybe. It was a long day, and they took us to 3 different cities all in one day. That's a lot, especially when it was piggybacked after the other 2 days where they were 10-hour tours. So
yeah, that was a lot. That was a lot.
No regrets.
No, but Barcelona was definitely much more our pace. We like to be aware of all the places we like to go and see, but we always travel understanding that if we really enjoy some place, we can always go back. So there's not a need to try to rush and see everything. It's kind of like the Disney World mentality where, and there are families that do this. They'll get up 6 o'clock in the morning and they're there from the time it opens to the time they close because they feel they have to get their money's worth. And there are people that are in that situation where this is the once in a lifetime trip, and we totally get that. We totally understand that.
And we respect that.
Absolutely. But for the majority, it's an opportunity to stop and say, hey, if I really enjoy this place, it may not be in the next year. It may be 2 or 3 years down the road, but I can plan to come back here. And hopefully there's things that you'll learn from how we've been able to manage our travel that you're going to be able to go to places that you hadn't thought about being able to go before and be able to go more often.
I think that that's a good point, truly, that having the mentality of going quickly like we did was great for us to get like just a little tiny bite.
Yeah, we called it our tapas trip. Not topless, which had a whole lot of people excited and said, no, it's tapas.
It didn't. Nobody thought that. But the tapas kind where it just kind of wet your whistle, give you a little bit of an introduction to the city, the culture, the food, and there were some where I definitely want to go back.
You know what it reminds me of? It was like a hop-on, hop-off cruise.
It was.
There you go.
It was, for sure. Just a little taste of everything. And I think for us in particular, we wouldn't enjoy that kind of travel if that were our main source of travel.
Yeah.
But because we did it the one time, and now next time if we do another cruise, we'll adjust that.
We will.
Yeah.
We will. And then last week we were in Chicago.
Weekend away.
A weekend away, literally a little more than 24 hours in Chicago. So we live west of Chicago, but we always say Chicago because it's easier than trying to say the specific city because people don't really know or care. But we love being in Chicago, and through our Hilton Aspire card, we had earned a free night certificate. And it's something we hadn't used yet, and so I called them about 2 weeks ago to see if we could get it extended, and they extended it for 2 weeks.
Right.
So we're like, well, we might as well go. And we used it to stay at the London House in downtown Chicago, which when we got there, we remembered that if you go back to one of our first videos where we talked about Chicago and the Starbucks Reserve, this was our first time. The first time we stayed in the London House was right when they were opening businesses back up during COVID.
Yes.
So
most of the businesses were closed.
Most of the businesses were still closed.
Yep.
And I remember that even the restaurant in the building for breakfast, we had to wear a mask, and they just had sack breakfasts.
Yeah.
Had to pick up your breakfast sandwiches and things. So, but it was nice to go back.
It was wonderful.
And the hotel itself was $0 cost for us. We had also obtained diamond status, so we were able to get a room upgrade, and also had $18 per person per day in credits that we could use at the restaurants. So
that's $72.
Yeah.
Of credits. That's no small amount of money for free.
Even at a hotel. I mean,
right.
It was great.
It was great.
So that the stay at the hotel, basically cost us nothing, and we had an opportunity to just kind of walk around the city and enjoy ourselves, and had a nice meal, and spent a lot of time just sitting and talking, which was nice. So.
Yeah. So I've got a random question for you.
Ooh.
How much money can you put on a credit card when you buy a car?
Well, that's an interesting question. I'm surprised and wondering where that came from. So we've had this conversation before, and it's something that in some of the Facebook forums that we're in, it comes up quite often. Because particularly if you have a credit card that you're trying to hit a specific spend to get a bonus, you're trying to use every opportunity that you can to maximize your purchases. And so one of the ways to do this is if you are in the market to buy a new or used car and you have a down payment, being able to apply the down payment to the credit card.
Or even leasing. Because you can put a down payment if you lease a car too.
Exactly. Are front loading the payments, which is what we did. So what we found typically is that when we bought a car during COVID, we asked about this. And the answer, I think, was $2,500 or $5,000. It was somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
And most of what I've seen is that people have been able to put down between $4,000 to $5,000 because this comes out of the dealer's pocket. So if they're having to pay, let's say 3.5%, that's for $5,000, that's what, $175 that they're having to pay out of pocket for your convenience. Well, this time we got the same answer. So we were getting ready to lease a new car, and we were going through the process and asked how much we could put on the card, and the salesperson said $2,500.
Mm-hmm.
And we were putting a substantial much more down. So we're like, okay, well, we'll put the $2,500 down and just write a check for the rest. And so by the time we got back to the finance office and we gave her the credit card and we said, well, how do we give you the rest of the money? And it was coming up to about $9,800. And we said, well, we'll give you the credit card for the $2,500 and then we'll transfer the other amount. And her response was,
well, we can do $7,500. And then we said, okay, no problem. We'll be happy to write a check for the rest of it. She asked if we were trying to accumulate points, and we were able to share. Yes, that's our goal. And when it was all said and done, she just allowed us to put the whole amount.
Go ahead and put the whole amount on there. So, and that was nice. So in that case, it was on our American Express card. And so the $9,800 in terms of the value of points that you get from American Express, that ends up being about $130 in real dollars that we now have available to us through the points we got from American Express. So those little things like that kind of add up. And what's important is that we already had the cash. So make sure of that, right? So we already had the cash, and we could have easily have paid cash for it. But basically, when someone says, hey, if you put this on this credit card I give you and just pay it before the end of the month, I will in return give you anywhere from 1 percentage point to, in some cases, 5 cents on the dollar. It's a nice little perk to have.
To your point, we only put things on credit cards that we already have set aside money for, because interest and fees from the credit card will eat away at any value that you would have gotten from points. So it makes a tremendous deal of sense to go ahead and get those credit cards paid off.
Yeah. So, and we'll talk about this more in our other podcasts, but having a budget is paramount.
Mm-hmm.
And once you have a budget, then it's just a difference of, rather than writing a check or using a debit card for something that you've already budgeted for, you put it on the credit card, you acquire the points or the miles from that, and then you pay it off the credit card. So it really is free money and free points for doing what you would normally do, as a regular, as part of your life. So,
and we love free.
We love free. So
free is good.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
So of all the places that we've gone this year,
just this year,
mm-hmm. What is a place that you say, boy, I wish we had a few more days in this city?
Oh, I would say Capri.
Really?
Yes.
Was it because of the watermelon?
The watermelon-sized lemons? Yes. And because of the views, I felt like we were on the island of Capri, that the tour guide was like, okay, see this beautiful, stunning view? Take a photo while you're walking, because we don't have time to stop.
Yeah.
Right? Because we took the gondola up. We had, what did he say? We took the tour and then we had 15 minutes.
15 minutes.
And in that 15 minutes, you've got to buy your scarf. You've got to buy whatever gift you're going to take home. If you're going to get a snack or a slushie or something, you've got to take care of that.
Candy.
Or candy. Yeah. We managed to squeeze in a lot in that 15 minutes. But that place was stunning. The views from up on the mountainside were stunning. I would love to go back and stay. It reminds me of Santorini, right?
Mm-hmm.
That island of Capri in Italy reminds me of Santorini. Of course, I've never been, but, it reminds me of the photographs.
On our list.
For sure.
Yes.
So how about you?
This may surprise you.
It may.
I'm going to say Antigua.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Tell me more.
Yeah. One, it reminded me a lot of Merida, and I just really like those colonial type towns.
Yeah.
The people were fantastic. The food was delicious.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just really liked Antigua a lot. Second on the list probably would be going back to Merida.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Places that we've spent a lot of time already.
Yeah, I just there's because I remember the first time we were in Merida, the thing that hit me, and I think I shared this with you, is that we landed and I felt like I was home.
Yeah.
It just felt comfortable. It was
Yeah.
a very comfortable place to be. And I felt the same way about Antigua. Just a very comfortable place to be. So Antigua would be it for me.
Okay. I love the idea of going back to Merida. One of my favorite things about Merida is the private pools that many of those homes have.
Yes.
Talk about being comfortable.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it really is nice there. So and we're going back. We're going back in a couple months, and this time we're taking one of our daughters and her husband.
Yes.
In a few months. So that'll be nice.
And between now and then, we're going with another couple.
To Cancun.
To Cancun.
Riviera Maya. But
True.
Yeah, so we'll get back to Mexico again.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
So anything else you want to cover in this first inaugural podcast?
Well, I just want to say thank you very much for joining us on our adventures. It is an honor and a privilege to be out there and sharing our...
Oh, I thought you were going to say being married to me.
Oh.
We can hope.
It's a joy most of the time being married to you. And it's an honor and a privilege to be able to take our friends and along with us when we go.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you for watching. If you like this, please click on the like button.
Subscribe.
And subscribe. And we'll see you in the next podcast. Bye-bye.
Bye. Coming up next week.
And what they are is that they're your traditional business class seats. But instead of having the barrier between the two seats, there are certain rows where the barrier lowers down and the seats can be brought together to make basically a double bed in the sky. Mm-hmm. And while there's a club that I hope that we had an opportunity to join, someone wasn't up to it, because of everyone else in the cabin and all this stuff. And
Stop yourself while you're ahead.